Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of How Stories Work. Today, I want to talk about Prey and the Incoherent Argument. So, I recently just watched Prey on Hulu, which I thought was really fun, but the story itself seemed to be a little bit confused as to what it was trying to say. And because of that, what happens is when you're trying to tell a story, if you don't make a complete argument, what happens is you can't remember exactly what happened in the story. And more importantly, the audience doesn't really get anything meaningful out of it. It might be entertaining. It might be fun to watch. The cinematography might be cool. The action scenes might be cool. But really, there's nothing more being said. Even if there's an attempt to do it, if it's not a coherent argument and all four through lines are accounted for, then what happens is you end up with something that you don't really want to see again. And that's the reason why you have a complete story and why subtext kind of forces that onto a writer, because likely you want to create something that people remember for a long time and also something they want to come back and revisit again. And the reason why you can come back to a particular story is if there's a complete argument being made, that's something that you can't get in real life. So that's why people will repeatedly watch something that they've seen before because they're getting something that they can't really get in real life. So with Prey, we have a thing where you have Naru, who is the main character of the story. And her story is that she really wants to be a hunter. She wants to be one that's the chief warrior. And of course, because she's a woman, she can't do it at this time. And it's her brother is the one who ends up saving the day all the time. The brother functions as the obstacle character. So he's the one who's forcing her to deal with her personal issues that she's sweeping under the rug. And you may think, what kind of personal issues does she have? That's the part where it's a little bit confused as to what's going on, because the way that the dynamics work, when you have that main character position going against the obstacle character position, one of the ways that a story produces meaning is to have one of those characters remain steadfast in what it is that they believe in. And then the other character is the one who changes or abandons their old way of doing things because of the interaction with the other character. And it could be either one. 50% of the stories have the main character who changes, and then 50% of the other stories have the main character who's steadfast, and then it's the obstacle character who actually ends up changing. And one of the problems with Prey is that you can't really tell who is the one that changed. On the one hand, it seems she's very steadfast and just keep going and resist everything. And then eventually the other side will change. And part of that's in there because she's portrayed as a steadfast character. And even the brother ends up changing at the end, not so much when he reveals the fact that it was always what she did up in the tree, although that goes in line with a steadfast argument. It's more, when he gives her permission and then she can actually do whatever it is that she wants to do. On the one hand, you have where she's a steadfast character and who's the changed character. But then if you actually went in and looked at, well, what are the elements that the story pivots around? The main character and the obstacle character will be opposed through two elements that are diagonally aligned in this model here. They create the greatest amount of conflict. And if we went into all the other arguments that are available as examples in subtext, you would see main characters here on the left, obstacle character on the right, and their particular element, what the actual argument is. So in Prey, there's a lot about hunting, about pursuing, which is great for this kind of story. And this quad up here in the upper right is the classic, most popular Western culture quad in the entire model, where you have pursuit, avoid, control, and free. What happens is, in a complete story, the main character will take one of these elements, and then the obstacle character takes the other side. And that's how they can have that you and I are both alike argument. They're both right and they're both wrong because they're both seeing two different ways of seeing the same thing. And then that plays out with this diagonal pairing here. If she's the steadfast character and he's the changed character, what does he change on? If he's control, and then she's free. But free in this context means reckless, wild, abandoned, And she has a little bit of that, but I'm not necessarily sure that's what's actually going on. He's definitely not free, and she's has a little bit more control. So then in the other side, if she's pursuit and he's avoid, which kind of works, she's the one that's always hunting and he's the one who's always trying to, it's more protection, but he's trying to prevent things from happening. If those were the pivotal elements of the narrative, that would mean in her main character through line, she would also be focused. The work that she would have to do in the story would be pursuit and avoid. So that's how the objective story through line connects with her main character personal issues. And that would sync up nicely because in the objective story, you have physics, which is all the activities and hunting, all the really cool predator stuff. And then the main character through line, her personal issues are universe, which is there's something wrong or something inequitable about her physicality. In that case, it's the classic. She's a woman in a man's world. She can't compete. So this is a really nice setup here. And then just to balance it out, the brother would be down here as the obstacle character in mind. And he has a fixed attitude, which is not, it's there, but it's not as strong as it possibly could be. In their relationship, it's just not developed as much as it should be. So if the pivotal elements are pursuit or avoid, and she's steadfast, that would mean that she's driven by support. So maybe she gets a lack of support, and then that's where she's coming from. But then that's weird because then opposition, it would be something that would resolve her motivation. And that seems opposite. It seems more like she's driven by oppose. But then the pivotal element, she would have to be avoid, and she's not anything about avoid. And the brother is definitely not anything about pursuit. So that argument breaks down really quickly. And so what's happening in the story is because there's no awareness of what it means to write a story and write a complete argument, it all falls apart. So you enjoy it. It's fun, but you kind of wish there'd be something more to it. And it wouldn't have taken that much more to really push a complete argument onto the film, or just one more rewrite to get it in there. So then if she's not the steadfast character, so then let's look at it as if she was the changed character, which I think is at least closer. It's still not complete, but at least it's closer to that. So if we took the same two elements and made it a change story, now it's not so much the work that needs to be done, but the dilemma, which I don't think was there as strong as it possibly could be. So the dilemma would be all the problems in the story are caused by pursuit or hunting, which would make perfect sense because the predator comes and he's just there to like hunt and have fun. So everybody's got an issue with pursuit. She has an issue with pursuit because all she wants to do is hunt all the time. She wants to go after, do all this stuff, but just not being allowed to do it. It would make sense because then in her personal through line, she's not getting the kind of support that she wants. So then she directs her efforts towards opposing everybody or rejecting them, going the other direction. That feels nice. And then she would be pursuit. And then the brother would be avoid, which he is there a little bit. And then there's a little bit with the mom. When she brings up this whole thing, it's not about the hunt. It's about survival, right? I think that was like they keyed into what, oh, that's actually what we're saying here. Just could have been a lot stronger. So if you took that and you made pursuit the problem, and then you plugged in all the other dynamics that would fit in with this kind of story, you would get a story form that would be a little something like this. So if I go into the argument, so here you would see the main character, she's driven by pursuit. The obstacle character is here and avoid. And then the premise would be something about abandon, just hunting something, just doing it for the hunt. And then you can secure your family, which is what the story is really about. It's about abandon just going after something just for the thrill of the hunt or just to be able to prove yourself or whatever it is. And instead replace that with avoidance, which would be a motivation of preventing or stopping someone from coming into your territory, stopping someone from hurting your family. So I think that's what the argument is. It just is so weak and it's confused because it's in there with this sort of steadfast thing that's going on with an alternate argument. And in the end, it's incoherent. So then if you step into the story form, you can see here, this is one where the main character changes out of their original motivation here. So getting out of pursuit, and then she has issues of delay. So like I said, there's a lot of stuff in here that's in the film and is likely the closest thing that could have been a complete argument, but it's still missing a lot of stuff in there. So her personal issues of delay, like She doesn't want to wait anymore. People are telling her to wait, to put it off, all this stuff. And so this would be her personal issues, the stuff that she would get through. Obviously, the objective story plot in physics, it's all the cool hunting stuff, all the really fun sort of stuff in there. And this overall issue of people just doing what's best in their self-interest and what it means to actually, instead of just going after something just for that thrill, to actually be somebody who can just stop someone. And she eventually gets to that spot. It's just not enough about it. So it's almost like this smooth slide that she goes into a void where she is doing all the things she's supposed to, but it's lacking the concrete argument to really make it meaningful. So it's like, oh, this is a great film. I got to watch it again. It's really close. And part of that has to do with these two through lines down here at the bottom, which are needed to balance out this argument, to give it a balanced, cohesive point of view that you're trying to get across, the author's trying to get across. The brother definitely has that fixed attitude. There could have been a lot more. Subconscious would be like the bravery and the courage and his sort of optimistic stuff. He is coming from a rational place, and he is the one who's able to like bring things to an end. That would be his unique ability of closure, which is really impressive upon her and makes it so that she has to deal with this issue of openness and denial. It's really weak and would have to be a lot stronger. But the thing that's like clearly really missing is this psychology through line of the relationship story, which would be more about brother and sister maturing to a different place. So it is there, and it is a little, you get a taste of that heartfelt when he says, go for it, you can do it. The conscience, like doing things because of the consequences or holding back. That is where their relationship is. It's situated in that area and eventually gets to a place of temptation. I don't know. The issue of commitment, so being committed likely to the family and what it means to be in that relationship with the family and satisfying the commitment and the dedication, what it goes into being that chief warrior, that would have brought it up to a place where the audience would have felt like, oh, okay, I actually got something out of this that I really can't get in real life, which is what this is all about. You want to give the audience something so meaningful that they just feel like they've experienced something that they can't get anywhere else. And then that's why they would keep coming back. So that's it for this episode of How Stories Work. If you have any questions about incoherent arguments and how you can make stronger arguments, please leave them in the comments down below. Otherwise, I will see you next time.